Hey you guys, it's Watcher Ralph, and I'm here with my sister Christabel.
Hello.
And we're about to cover the spoiler review of Get Out.
Yes.
Now, we're covering this movie because the Academy Awards is coming up real soon, and the Blu-ray was released recently. So of course, it deserves a little conversation on it. Now, to me, this movie was definitely one of the best of 2017.
Agreed.
It came out pretty early, and yet we're still talking about it, which shows how great it was. I mean, it was definitely one of the best in the genre of horror films. And it was Jordan Peele's directorial debut. And at the end of the day, like he said, it's only downhill from here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we also watched the movie on commentary, and like I tell you guys all the time, it's best to see everything in commentary if you have time. Because especially if the commentary comes from the director, he almost talks to you as a student and lets you know every detail. You get so many tidbits, you get so much inside baseball information, and to me it's incredible.
Yeah, I think this film is pretty groundbreaking in, the idea of us living in a post-racial America,
Yes.
And it brings it straight to your face that that's not in fact the case, but in a very subtle manner. It eases you into it, believing, this is somewhere that you should be safe, even though you know in the back of your head what the actual premise of
Yes.
the film is.
Mm-hmm.
I think Peele does a fantastic job of, throughout it, as for the audience and with Daniel Kaluuya's character, believing that, no, everything's going to be okay. So that is really exemplary in terms of his writing, and then with the directing, just showing that how he chose to film it, and the DP he chose really know how to keep you at ease even when you know there's
what's
horror coming.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. And then what I love is the performance of Rose, which even Jordan Peele talks about how she basically plays two people. She plays Rose, and then when she sooner or later reveals herself to be obviously a villain as well, she's Roro.
Yeah.
And I mean, her performance is incredible. Even though, to be honest, if you know me, I tend to read into things a lot. And I found the first scene she was in to be kind of awkward because of that smile when she does look at the donuts. It felt like it was implying something, to be honest. And then when she went up to the door, I felt like it was playful that she had her hands full. And so the way that she chose to knock was to knock her head into the door. But I felt like we don't see that often in movies. And I felt like that was an indication of how crazy this character could be. It was meant to be playful, but you could read into it in that way.
I found myself for that first portion of that first act questioning, is she in on it?
Yeah.
And there was a moment where as soon as we find out the mom is a hypnotist, she's a psychiatrist, I did question to myself more than once, like, oh, well, maybe
She's been put under hypnosis
she's
as well.
been put under hypnosis as well. She's the only sane one here. Obviously, as the film wears on, you start realizing that's not the case, but I do think that she did a fantastic job, Allison Williams, through her performance of you really feeling for Rose, because she seems like she genuinely does love Daniel Kaluuya's character.
And that's why it was beautiful too, the fact of, just like you said, we knew what was coming, and yet it was brilliant the way they handled her as a character, because she wouldn't make him feel dumb about the fact. Instead, she put him at ease. She was actually encouraging the way he was feeling, which of course made him feel comfortable within that scenario, which of course meant that no matter what, he wasn't leaving. And that's where you had to really pay attention.
Yes.
As much as, like we say in the second viewing of dealing with the police officer that pulled him over.
We acknowledge now that the fact is she didn't want anyone to know.
Yes. And some breadcrumbs and a paper trail would have been left, literally. So what I love is that there's so many layers that when you watch it again, you could even watch it a third time and realize something new every single time. Even with the case of, like, even Jordan Peele talking about her character at the very end, I did feel like it was kind of weird where that mini closet was slightly left open.
Yes.
And yet Jordan Peele explains
It's intentional.
it was intentional. She's kind of playing with her prey. She already knew what was coming, that this was at the end game already. This is the end point of the situation. And she wanted him to doubt or to feel that fear in the moment, which I find it kind of funny that she catches him closing the door, and yet he still tries to play it off like at ease, like, oh no, yeah, let's leave, even though we all know his real intention is to get out.
and in that point, in that scene as well, she's still playing along. She's still
Yes.
playing that
Yes.
character. You know, Peele talks a lot about those subtleties within her performance, as well as Bradley Whitford's and Catherine Keener's,
Yeah.
which I think was great watching the commentary to have an idea of the brother's performance.
Yes.
Where he states, you know, this is the only character that actually is himself throughout this entire experience in terms of the family.
Yeah.
We,
Not putting on a show.
yeah, he seems like an asshole, and he is an asshole,
Yeah.
but there's something really interesting that Peele brings to light through the commentary that when we're watching the dinner scene that I thought was really impressive. Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
of course. The fact that, like you said, that he's a person that is rebelling against the system. And it's sad to say that he's obviously clearly the worst out of them all. You could see that he's not hiding all the feelings that he has, whether it is racial, you know, stereotypes, everything. And that's why I did find it beautiful that at the end of the day, there was layers to that character, that at the end of the day, he seemed like the worst of them all, but they were all terrible. So he was the one that was almost willing to not hide it because he had a problem with the situation that that he's lived with.
I think another nice thing that's brought up in the commentary, this was my third viewing of the film, is that when you're watching it the second time, and now, you know, everything's exposed, you know what's coming, you know that these are the grandparents, I still didn't quite think of the dynamics between those two characters and the rest of the family, and Peele really brings to light the fact that, you know, Catherine Keener's character
Yes.
with her mother-in-law, if you really look closely, it is an interaction that, you know, someone would have with their mother-in-law. There's kind of that resentment
Yes.
and this annoyance almost that really I didn't think about it that way originally, but then watching it with his commentary and realizing that, oh wow, yeah, that's a layer right there that you wouldn't have even taken note of.
And then even with the other member, the grandfather, like I always felt that scene is meant to be almost menacing and shocking when he's running at him at full speed. But I love the layer that Jordan Peele explains, that the real reason why they have resentment towards minorities is because the grandfather had lost in the Olympics to one of the greatest track stars of our time, and he's kept that resentment, and he's always pushing in his mind to win that time of when he lost. So that's why you're seeing him trying to beat his time, running through the yards over and over again. It was layered. I like what he brought to it. Plus, I love the fact that, of course, we all know about the alternate ending,
Yes.
and I love his explanation to that, because I do prefer, of course, the ending that we received, which is that, you know, his best friend, it's not the cops at the end that show up, even though you see the lights and you go, oh no, you know how this is going to end. And it ends up being his friend saving the day, which to me adds that layer, of course, right? You would agree? Because what I like is that even Jordan Peele explains that he had both endings by creating that ending, because he knows that the first instinctive thought you're going to have is, oh no, look what's coming. So he already gave you that ending, and yet by flipping it on its head, he's able to bring, you know, some hope into the
Yes,
moment.
I think that's the perfect word to capture it, is hope. You know, he's both acknowledging the reality that we face, you know, in today's America, for African American men particularly,
Exactly.
but then gives you that, okay, no, but in this case, the good guy does prevail.
Yeah.
One thing, particularly with that scene, and that's also shown in several other scenes that I really loved that Peele mentions, is that he doesn't just go for an immediate jump scare. He wants to prep his audience for
Yes.
what's coming and then give you that.
It's all about
And
psychology.
yeah, and in that final scene, you see TSA for a moment. So it gives you that time to
Yes.
process, like, ooh, relief, and then you actually see the best friend's character. I think he mentions that with two other instances in the film as well, where you're giving something to prime you of what's coming, and then there's that actual
yes.
scare or that reveal.
To me, it's almost like he's dealing with us as the audience, like the mother is dealing with the main character. She's prepping him,
Yep.
and prepping him for the very end, for the op. So to me, again, this movie definitely deserves to be nominated for Best Movie, and I don't think it's gonna win, but I hope that it could win. You know, I hope that it.
Yeah, it would be groundbreaking all around. And you know, Daniel Kaluuya, who's also nominated, Jordan Peele, who's nominated for Best Directing, it's nominated for Best Original Screenplay. It would be great to see one win within these categories that it's nominated for, these 4 categories. You know, the likelihood of that may not come to to fruition,
Yeah.
because particularly I was hearing about, you know, this travesty that a lot of Oscar voters aren't even watching all of the films that are nominated, and that in specifically with Get Out, they just don't feel that it should have been nominated in the first place, so they didn't even bother watching it. That's a whole nother conversation,
Yes.
but given that, it seems like maybe it won't go home with anything, but it more than deserves all the things that it's been nominated
Of course.
for.
So yeah, that's why to me, even though the Academy won't praise the movie, here we're gonna praise it fully, and that's why I would give the movie a
And I would give the movie a
So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie first before you saw this review, since it was a spoiler one. But leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Let me know if you think it will win this year. And I'd like to thank my sister Christabel for being a part of this review. And I want to thank you guys for watching. So, till we meet again, goodbye. I'll see you guys. Get out, get out, get out!